Shocking discovery. Millionaire exposes wife's hidden control over his mother's life. An incredible tale of betrayal. The dim light of his upscale home office enveloped Jake Thompson as he sifted through yet another pile of property documents. A billionaire architect in San Francisco, the weight of his success felt like a flimsy veneer. It wasn't until he stumbled upon a series of emails, faded blue text on white screens, that veneer cracked, leaving him feeling raw and exposed. The frozen grip of disbelief tightened around his throat as the words registered. Miranda, his beloved wife, was manipulating his elderly mother, Doris, into making financially perilous decisions. As he read the lines, accusing whispers clawed at him. Jake's world spiraled, leaving him reeling in betrayal. Family was everything to Jake. It anchored him, wrapped him in love and ignited his dreams. He built a life of luxury from humble beginnings, rigorously protecting the sanctity of family. But now, the very woman he cherished stood poised to dismantle it. The air grew heavy, as if foreshadowing some impending disaster. Perhaps Miranda was right. She often had a way of offering practical advice that sounded more like a command. Still this? This crossed an unspoken boundary. How had he not seen it sooner? With every keystroke bearing the weight of lies, he wrestled with contradictions, festering beneath the surface. Love, loyalty, rage, and despair swirled through him, suffocating his thoughts. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With his heart racing, Jake confronted Miranda, shaking with tension, the once coveted intimacy between them now ablaze with ire. "Do you really think you're helping?" he demanded, struggling to contain his voice as he battled the instinct to lash out. "My mother is not a pawn in your game. She deserves respect, not manipulation." Miranda's facade cracked as she delivered her feeble justification. She was saving him from his mismanagement, that he wasn't fit to make decisions about Doris's care. In that moment, anger consumed him. Could anyone be so self-serving? Torn between compassion and fury, the very essence of his family felt like it was slipping through his clenched fists. Just as he felt he might achieve clarity, relief turned to chaos. A phone call from Doris's nurse shattered his focus. The words seemed to echo, distorting reality. His mother's health was slipping, a result of Miranda's critical decisions. Desperation seized him, gripping his throat, stifling breaths as he rushed to the hospital. What would he find? Was the summer of laughter spent over dinner tables now receding like a shadow? Jake's mind spun. He saw vulnerable flashes of his mother's gentle smile, felt the weight of sacrifices made over years of shared love. As he entered the clinical confines of the hospital room, machines beeped ominously. There lay Doris, frail and fragile, oxygen tubes snaking around her. Reality jolted through him like electricity. The anguish renewed a vicious determination. Yet he was not just fighting for his mother, but for his ideals, risking the family he'd fought so hard to build. The air was thick with unresolved tension. He stood at a precipice. Would he defend Doris's autonomy against the force that was Miranda, or would he cling to a loyalty that threatened to shatter everything? Time felt suspended, and all Jake could think was that whatever decision he made would ultimately define who he really was. Jake stood in the sterile hospital room, the rhythmic beeping of the machines creating a haunting, monotone background to his spiraling thoughts. Every face he passed echoed desperation, fear splashed across their features. They were all there for someone they loved. Yet in this shared space of sorrow, Jake felt utterly alone. The confrontation with Miranda still seethed in his chest, and now the stakes had transformed into a life-or-death battle, one he never anticipated. He approached Doris's bed, her frail fingers barely recognizable beneath the tangled sheets. The burden of guilt clawed at him. He had trusted Miranda, believed she had his and his mother's best interests at heart. How many choices had he unknowingly allowed her to make for them both? It gnawed at him as he leaned closer, seeking any flicker of awareness in his mother's eyes. "Mom," he whispered, urgency lacing his voice. "Can you hear me?" A flicker of recognition sparked in her gaze, but it faded. Could he undo the choices made in misguided love? With every breath he took, he strategized, planning his move against Miranda not only as a husband, but as a son. He recalled the many family dinners, the stories they shared, each one laced with warmth and laughter. The vacuum of silence where laughter should be made him shudder. Would he be held accountable for failing to see the truth wrapped in mirages of comfort? Determination seeped through the cracks of his faltering resolve. He had built structures that defied gravity, and now he needed to construct a support system for his mother, one that was impenetrable by false pretenses. "How did it come to this?" he murmured, barely audibly. The walls of the hospital echoed his question, taunting him. The idea of confronting Miranda again felt as terrifying as it did necessary. He hated the thought of impending conflict, but the essence of family demanded transparency, truth, and respect. Who was he becoming if he turned a blind eye out of cowardice? The unfamiliar sensation of fear was overshadowed by a stirring anger, a potent cocktail that urged him forward. He reached for his phone, hands shaking as he scrolled through his contacts. The weight of his decision loomed over him, but this time he needed backup. He dialed an attorney, a man who had advised him during previous business negotiations, someone known for his protective instincts rather than the greed that often plagues their industry. Jake needed a strategy, a legal backbone as he prepared to advocate for his mother's autonomy and confront the puppet master behind the curtain. As he hung up, the resolve felt exhilarating. It wasn't just about Doris, it was about drawing a line in the sand, reclaiming his narrative. He would gather evidence, talk to nurses, understand each choice that led to this moment of vulnerability. He would unravel Miranda's web, not just for himself, but for his mother, who deserved more than to be a mere spectator in her own life. But the moment felt fleeting. The tension itching beneath his skin warned him that this was only the beginning. Even as he prepared for battle, his heart thudded uneasily at the thought of facing Miranda again. This would not just be a fight for Doris's care. This was a battle for his identity, a trial by fire that would demand more than he thought he could give. Lights flickered outside as the evening sun bled into the horizon. The setting cast eerie shadows in the room, moments of impending darkness gathering like a storm. Jake took a deep breath, grasping the sense of impending confrontation with both eager anticipation and raw fear. In his mind, a singular thought echoed, clear and resounding. The time had come to face the truth, and the truth would demand every ounce of courage he could muster. Jake paced the fluorescent-lit corridor, his mind racing with the weight of his decision. Every step felt heavy, the air thick with unspoken implications. His confrontation with Miranda loomed ahead like an insurmountable wall, and he couldn't shake the sense of dread forming a knot in his stomach. Yet a different feeling simmered beneath the surface, a growing sense of purpose. The attorney's reassuring voice echoed in his mind. "Gather your facts, understand your position." He understood now that this battle was about more than just his mother's care. It was about regaining control over his own life, reclaiming those family dinners where laughter lived, before the specter of Miranda tainted their memories. He stopped abruptly in front of the nurse's station, the coldness of the linoleum floor sending a jolt through him. "Excuse me," he began, forcing himself to maintain composure. The nurse, a middle-aged woman with warm eyes, looked up, ready to help. "I need to understand my mother's condition, everything that has led to this." With her guidance, he navigated the labyrinth of medical jargon and documentation. Each detail acted like shards of glass, shining light on the decisions Miranda had orchestrated, decisions that left Doris vulnerable. Jake scribbled notes feverishly, his fingers barely able to keep pace with his racing thoughts. As he pieced together the puzzle, clarity struck him. Miranda's influence wasn't limited. It extended into the very fabric of their family, shaping unbearable choices. How had he allowed this to happen? The realization spiraled into a vortex of frustration, but he channeled it. This was not just a lesson about his mother, it was about him, too, about what remained unspoken in their family dynamics. After his conversation, Jake felt a sense of resolve solidify within him. He equipped himself with every piece of evidence he could gather, ready to dismantle the stronghold Miranda had created. This wasn't merely a plan for a confrontation. It was a blueprint for reclaiming every lost memory, every sliver of joy that had once colored their lives. His phone buzzed and broke his reverie. It was a text from Miranda. "When are you coming home? We need to talk." The audacity of it stung like a slap. Each word dripped with condescension. She thought she still had sway over him. He clenched the phone, the intensity rising. Anger mixed with a renewed sense of power surged through him. He would not answer. Not yet. Jake returned to the hospital room, the frail figure of his mother in stark contrast to the steely determination brewing inside him. The beeping machines marked time as he mentally prepared for the impending clash. He would be the architect of change, not merely a spectator. He sat down beside Doris, taking her hand gently. As he held her fragile fingers, he felt the warmth of her life, fragile yet potent. In that moment, he made a vow, not just to fight for her, but also to rediscover who he truly was, beyond Miranda's control. That fight would unveil the layers of Jake he had neglected, and he would have to confront his own fears along with Miranda's manipulation. A soft knock startled him. The door creaked open. It was Miranda. Her eyes flickered with an unsettling calm as she entered. The moment hung heavily between them, charged with tension, a foreshadowing of the storm to unfold. Jake's breath quickened. This was it. The moment of confrontation was finally upon him. Would he have the courage to stand his ground? The shift in the air foretold the clash that would redefine everything he thought he knew. The door swung slowly inward, and for a fleeting moment Jake's pulse quickened. Miranda entered with her usual composure, her crisp suit contrasting sharply with the sterile hospital surroundings. He braced himself, the tension between them palpable, yet deep within this chaos, a steely determination anchored him. Miranda's expression was inscrutable, a facade of authority wrapped around her like armor. "Jake," she began, her voice smooth yet edged with venom, "we need to discuss your mother's care plans. There are matters I believe you might not fully comprehend." Jake fought to suppress the surge of indignation rising within him. Her subtle condescension was meant to rattle him, to return him to the hesitant, submissive son she had grown accustomed to. Instead, he steeled himself, summoning the resolve that had emerged during his frantic research. "I think I have a clear understanding now," he replied, forcing calm into his tone. Her brows knitted slightly, but he could see a flicker of something. Was it annoyance? He chose to seize this moment. "I've been reviewing her medical history. It's evident to me that there have been significant choices made without my knowledge." Miranda's lips curved into an uneasy smile, barely suppressing the irritation that threatened to escape. "You think you can come in here and undermine what I've built? You have no idea what it takes to secure her future," she retorted, her voice rising ever so slightly. Jake leaned forward, his heart pounding but his expression steady. Securing her future, or controlling her life. "Miranda, I know about the decisions you've made. I know about the care facilities you're considering." Each word lashed out like arrows, aimed at the heart of her manipulation. The flicker of her calm exterior dimmed momentarily. "You're overstepping your bounds," she warned, her voice colder now. "You have no legal rights while she's incapacitated. I am her primary caretaker, and I will protect her, no matter what you think you know." He felt the room constrict, the air thickening as she tossed another threat at him. This was the dynamic he had played into for far too long, a dance of control that kept him tethered to an impossible reality. But Jake closed his eyes for a heartbeat, channeling the warmth of his mother's hand still resting in his, a reminder of what he was truly fighting for. "That may be true," he finally said, exuding a new confidence he hadn't realized was brewing within him. "But decisions are best made with the entire family involved. I will consult with my attorney, and if necessary, I will take legal action to become involved in her care." A flicker of surprise crossed her face, quickly succeeded by an expression of calculated anger. "You wouldn't dare," she shot back. Yet Jake sensed the vulnerable edge to her threat. He wanted her to feel the seriousness of his resolve, to recognize the shift in their relationship. "I don't want it to come to that, Miranda. I want to discuss a plan in good faith. But if you continue to act unilaterally, I will be forced to protect my mother's interests. Her lips pressed tightly together, a storm brewing in her silence. The battle lines were drawn. For the first time, he felt a surge of hope. However, there was still a part of him filled with uncertainty. Despite the clarity he had gained, would it be enough? The confrontation had unveiled a glimmer of the power he could wield, but it was different from taking that power and using it effectively against a seasoned manipulator like Miranda. Without responding, Miranda turned on her heel, the rigidness in her posture a clear sign of the war that had only just begun. As the door clicked shut behind her, Jake was left alone with his racing thoughts. He had taken the first step, but the path to reclaiming his mother and himself was riddled with unknowns. What strategies would he need to employ? What further revelations would come to light about Miranda's past in their family dynamics? With his heart pounding, he realized this was merely the beginning of a fight he was no longer willing to avoid. As he sat quietly, gripping his mother's frail hand, he contemplated his next move. The notion of unexpected revelations about Miranda lingered in the back of his mind, a whisper calling him to explore deeper. He steadied his breath, preparing for the complexities ahead. The game was afoot. He just needed to discover where Miranda's hidden vulnerabilities lay. Would they provide the leverage he needed to take back control? Jake seethed as silence enveloped the room. Miranda's departure sparked both fear and exhilaration within him, stirring a cauldron of thoughts. She had positioned herself as an impenetrable barrier to his mother's care, a warden cloaked in authority. Yet beneath that facade lay a fragile perception, one he could exploit if he played his cards right. He took a deep breath and retrieved his laptop from the bedside table. The icy glow of the screen flickered to life, illuminating the dimness of the hospital room. He needed information, a way to uncover Miranda's vulnerabilities. Frustration crept in as he navigated through countless reports and legal jargon, but a subtle resolve ignited within him. Finding that critical piece of knowledge about his mother's situation or about Miranda herself felt crucial. Hours slipped away, the clock's tick blending with the rhythmic beeping of monitors. The landscape of information morphed from vague hospital policies to anecdotes of patient rights. A mantra emerged in his mind. Knowledge was his ally. He scoured articles discussing elder care laws, parental rights in healthcare, and the intricacies of legal guardianship. Each detail he absorbed brought him closer to clarity, each revelation fanning the flames of his determination. As the evening shadows lengthened, a particular case caught his attention. A lawsuit involving a family dispute over elder care that highlighted the importance of proper legal documentation. The outrage and chaos exposed in those pages resonated with his own situation, each word a guide on how to navigate the potentially treacherous waters ahead. Suddenly a name leapt from the text: Margaret Stokes, a renowned elder law attorney. A spark ignited. If he could consult Ms. Stokes, she might illuminate the path, offering him strategies to challenge Miranda's unilateral grip on his mother's decisions. With his heart pounding, he found the attorney's details online, focusing on the business card image displayed beneath a glowing recommendation. Tonight he had a plan, a mission. He dialed the number, and after a series of nerve-wracking rings, a friendly yet professional voice answered. "Stokes Law Firm, how can I help you?" "I need help," Jake stumbled, the urgency in his voice palpable. "It's about my mother's healthcare situation. I'm looking for legal advice on how to navigate a complicated family matter." Her tone shifted instantly, curiosity peaking. What kind of complication? Jake inhaled sharply, deciding to trust this stranger with the tumult of emotions swirling inside. "It's about decisions being made without my consent. I believe my mother's interests are being compromised." "Let's set up an appointment then. We can discuss this further," she replied, setting the wheels of hope in motion. The call ended, and Jake's mind rifled through scenarios, contemplating the breadth of what tomorrow might bring. A renewed sense of agency rushed through him. The disappointment of the past was giving way to the promise of confrontation, and he envisioned walking into that lawyer's office, armed with knowledge and the strength it afforded him. He was stepping toward control, inching away from the shadows Miranda cast so long over his family. But lingering doubt remained. What if Miranda caught wind of his plans? Would she retaliate before he could gather the information he needed? He had already revealed his intent. She would surely fortify her defenses. As a storm of thoughts brewed, Jake leaned back in the chair and rubbed the tension in his temples, grounding himself. He had come too far to back down. This was only the beginning, and with each moment he felt himself morphing into the protector he was meant to be. But as he leaned forward, ready to execute the next phase of his plan, an ominous ripple slithered through his thoughts. What was Miranda hiding, and how far would he need to go to reveal the truth? With the night deepening, he realized it was the secrets about Miranda, and perhaps those about his mother, that would ultimately determine their fates. The journey ahead promised unearthing shocking truths, but would he be prepared for what he might find? Jake awoke the next morning with a jolt, the weight of his mission pressing down on him like a physical presence. The boldness of his plans hung in the air. He was determined not to be a victim of Miranda's control anymore. A singular thought crystallized in his mind. Knowledge would dismantle her power. The morning sun filtered through the hospital blinds, and Jake found a moment of peace in the golden rays that bathed the room. He clutched his phone tightly, knowing he had the appointment with Margaret Stokes later that day. As he replayed their conversation, he felt a mix of excitement and apprehension. A legal mind could tip the scales significantly. Now he just had to arm himself with all he could before stepping into that office. He decided to use the time he had before his appointment wisely. He delved deeper into the research he started the night before. Articles turned into legal precedents. Summaries morphed into questions he could pose. He formulated a list, each bullet point a strategy, an opportunity to follow a potential lead that could unravel Miranda's careful facade. "I need to know everything," he whispered under his breath, the resolve hardening his voice. Each thought propelled him forward. Who was Miranda, really? What did she gain from her role in his mother's life? Her decisions were not just for care. They were threads woven into an intricate web, and Jake was determined to cut through it. Jake's hands flew over the keyboard, the clicking noises punctuating his determination. He could see the pieces of Miranda's story starting to interweave with his mother's, the unforeseen choices made in a family riddled with past traumas. The more information he gathered, the more a picture formed. A picture he was beginning to see was not merely about care, but about control. Time evaporated. His phone buzzed, and the notification signaled it was almost time to go. With a final read of his notes, he shoved his laptop into his bag and collected his thoughts as he closed the door behind him, stepping into the sterile smell of the hospital. The drive to Stokes' law firm was filled with a mix of nervous anticipation and fierce determination. Every red light felt like an eternity, each one a reminder that he couldn't afford to waste another moment. As he parked and approached the office's entrance, he felt the walls closing in for an instant. But he shoved the fear aside, bolstered by a new kind of strength. He was not just a son anymore. He was a challenger. Inside Stokes' law firm, the polished floors and muted tones seemed to reflect his own stark need for clarity and resolution. He was directed to an office decorated with legal tomes and crisp certificates. The sight strengthened his resolve. Margaret Stokes was an expert, and he was here to extract every bit of information she had. "Jake, I'm Margaret," she said, offering a handshake as she welcomed him into her domain. The firmness of her grip told him she was someone who would fight, just like he intended to. As they took their seats, he laid out his narrative, unfolding the tangled dynamics of his family, his mother, and the malignant figure that overshadowed them all. Margaret listened intently, occasionally jotting down notes. "Your situation is quite complicated," she finally said, her voice even but firm, "but there are definitely steps we can take." She unveiled potential strategies that made Jake's heart race, but as they talked through the possibilities, an unsettling thought gnawed at him. What other hidden truths lay beneath the surface? What realities had he yet to confront that could threaten not just his efforts, but also his sense of self? With every word exchanged, the path forward appeared more convoluted. Plans to challenge Miranda now depended on a series of choice-laden next steps that could either liberate him or tether him even tighter to the familial strife he sought to escape. As he left Margaret's office, one thing was clear. He needed to gather intelligence, not just about Miranda's past, but about his mother's will, a hidden aspect that might just unlock the answers he so desperately sought. But a shadow loomed larger than before. What if uncovering these truths unearthed more pain than he was prepared to handle? As he drove away, an echo resounded in his mind. His fight was just beginning, and hidden secrets were ready to spring forth. Would he be ready to face what he might find next? The air in Jake's small apartment felt stifling as he paced the floor, the low hum of anxiety coursing through him. It had been hours since he left Stokes' law firm, but the conversation with Margaret continued to play on repeat in his mind. Each strategy she suggested was like a puzzle piece, but instead of coherent images, they seemed to spiral into a deeper chaos. What if he was digging too deep? He paused at his desk, glancing at the multiple documents and reports he had printed regarding his mother's health and finances. A mounting urgency pressed against his chest. Was he really prepared for the depths of what he was unearthing? The prospect of confronting Miranda, a woman whose grip had ensnared his family for years, loomed like a spectre in his mind. "Focus," he muttered, shaking his head. He needed to pinpoint where to begin unraveling the lies surrounding his mother's care and Miranda's influence. The idea of his mother's will, a seemingly innocuous document, transformed into a battleground where every clause could either defend his mother's wishes or bind her further into Miranda's schemes. Jake took a deep breath, grounding himself. The time had come to touch base with the past, his mother's past. He needed context. It was time to dig out family records, to comb through anything that might shine a light on Miranda's motives. He had to confront the very source of this turmoil. With determination, he grabbed a bag and set out towards the family home, feeling the weight of history mixed with urgency. Arriving at the old house felt surreal, tracing the path to memories soaked in familial warmth, now tangled with shadows. Opening the door, the creak sounded like a foreboding whisper. The dust motes danced through beams of afternoon light, revealing an unbearable stillness. This eeriness reminded him that time had not been kind to his mother's legacy. He wasted no time, moving to the attic where family documents were stored. With each box he opened, he sifted through photographs, old letters and papers detailing life's milestones, graduations, marriages, births. Each artifact breathed life into memories that had become distant, yet he wrestled with a new feeling, an unsettling question. Could secrets be hidden here, unseen in the fragile glow of nostalgia? Hours passed, and Jake found himself surrounded by paper mountains, exhaustion settling into his bones. Just as he began to feel the weight of failure creep in, a box marked "Legal Matters" captured his attention. Hope ignited as he fished through its contents, unearthing an envelope clearly marked with his mother's handwriting, "My will." Heart racing, he tore it open. Inside, the document unfolded to reveal more than just a will. There were handwritten notes, amendments, secrets that reveled in the shadows of misunderstanding. His hand trembled as he read her words, the familiar looping script now laden with urgency and fear. Beneath the legalese he deciphered hopes and wishes he had never known, but intertwined with them were clauses he wasn't prepared for. Understanding washed over him, bringing clarity but also apprehension. Miranda had manipulated every part of this situation, and his mother had been fighting back in her own way. Those hidden clauses could hold the key to breaking free, but also forthcoming heartbreak. As Jake wrestled with the implications of what he had found, a loud crash echoed from downstairs, snapping him back to the present. Instinctively his heart raced. Who was home? Adrenaline surged through him as he realized he had to confront the reality of Miranda and her influence, face to face. This was a moment he had been preparing for, but was he ready? One question remained pressing in his mind. If he revealed these hidden truths, would he uncover the power to liberate his mother's legacy, or unleash a wrath he wasn't prepared to face? With trepidation fueling his decision, he had to act and fast. But as he approached the staircase, the shadow of doubt whispered, had he really uncovered everything? And if he was wrong, could the fallout push him beyond redemption? As he paused at the landing, he hesitated, sensing a life-altering confrontation waiting just beyond the door. What revelation lay ahead with the next footsteps he took? Jake's breath quickened as he contemplated the descent into the unknown. Each step seemed weighted with the echoes of transformative choices, and yet the thought of confronting Miranda filled him with dread. As he placed his foot on the first step, the sturdy wood creaked beneath him, a sound that felt like an alarm ringing out against his resolve. He forced himself to move, following the sound of chaos below. Stepping onto the ground floor, he squinted against the dim light filtering through the room. The tension in the air thickened as he approached the source of the noise. A toppled bookshelf spilled its contents, sending scattered legal books and papers cascading onto the floor. A sense of foreboding clawed at him. Had Miranda truly come to the house, overturning not just furniture, but perhaps also the fragile barrier between them? Rounding the corner, he spotted her silhouette, her rapid movements mirroring his own earlier unrest. She stood in front of a window, darting glances outside, as if expecting someone, or perhaps fleeing from the truth he had begun to uncover. The sight of her evoked a mix of resentment and confusion within him. What did she want? What was she hiding? "Miranda," he said, his voice steadier than he felt. "What are you doing here?" Her body tensed, and she pivoted to face him, surprise flickering across her features. "Jake, what are you doing back here?" The smoothness of her voice, a practiced calm, clashed with her disheveled appearance. He realized that beneath her composed exterior lay the disarray of the past, tangled, frayed connections. "I came to look for something important." The determination in his voice surprised even himself. The legal documents in hand felt like a shield against her manipulative aura. "Why are you really here, Miranda?" Her eyes narrowed, the calculated composure beginning to crack. "You shouldn't be here. You don't understand the implications of digging into your mother's affairs." His heart hammered. A simmering mixture of anger and fear fueled his courage. "Is that what this is about, you hiding the truth? Because I'm starting to think it was you who buried it." He took a step forward, and she instinctively took a step back, a barrier forming between them. The space itself seemed charged with silent conflict. "You have no idea who you're dealing with, Jake. There are facets of this family you've never even considered. Your naivety will only lead to disastrous consequences." "Disastrous or enlightening?" She hesitated, and for a moment he saw apprehension flit across her face. "You think you hold all the cards now, don't you?" Her tone shifted, adopting a condescending edge. "The reality is different from your fairy tale. You uncover one secret, and you will find 1,000 more waiting to topple your world." Jake's expression hardened. Every word she spoke weighed heavier than the last, knitting doubt into resolve. It nearly felt like a dance, the push and pull of power, where for the first time he refused to back down. Maybe it's time for those secrets to see the light. The tension snapped as she lunged for a nearby drawer, pulling it open with frenetic energy. "You don't have the strength to fight this battle, Jake. You're too intertwined with the very fabric of what you're trying to destroy." Her voice dripped with steely resolve, yet her eyes betrayed a flicker of fear. "I might be, but at least I'm not afraid to face the truth," he countered, feeling a deep conviction begin to rise within him. "You've kept everyone, including my mother, shackled in your web. It's time to cut those ties." As their confrontation intensified, Jake's mind raced with possibilities. What might he uncover next? Would confronting Miranda expose the very heart of the schemes she orchestrated, or merely intensify the turmoil? The realization struck him. Revealing the hidden truths could redefine not only his mother's legacy, but his own path as well. But just then, a noise from the attic gave them both pause. A distinct creaking echoed, and Jake's pulse quickened once again. A buried past was surfacing, and he had the key to unlock whatever lay ahead. Before he could speak, Miranda's eyes grew wide with a realization, as dread settled in like a heavy fog. "Do not go up there, Jake. You don't want to see what's been kept hidden." He stood at the precipice of a choice: confront the unknown and possibly unleash his mother's deepest secrets, or retreat into the darkness that enveloped Miranda's control. As he prepared to ascend the stairs once more, the thrill of uncertainty urged him onward. What had he truly opened? What would he find in that attic where shadows clung to secrets that could very well unravel everything? Jake's foot hesitated on the first stair, the wood creaking beneath him, a warning that resonated deep within his core. The air grew heavy with apprehension, each breath an effort as he faced the prospect of unearthing whatever truth lurked above. The softness of the carpet faded into the unforgiving wood of the staircase, a reminder of the choice standing before him: delve deeper into his family's hidden intricacies, or retreat to the safer yet suffocating comfort of ignorance. The creaking intensified, echoing through the lonely corners of the house. Miranda's fearful gaze bore into him. "Jake, this isn't a game," she warned, her voice trembling ever so slightly, revealing a vulnerability that Jake had never seen before. "You don't understand what you're stepping into." In that moment, a spark ignited within Jake. All the weeks of uncertainty, self-doubt, and ambition collided at that very junction. He had spent too long cowering behind the shadows cast by Miranda's manipulations, fearing the depths she would go to protect her secrets. "I'm not afraid of the truth, Miranda," he declared, each word taking on a weight he had never carried before. "I'm tired of living in your secretive world." His determination surged, a force fueled by every moment he'd felt powerless under her influence. She stepped forward, hands raised in a gesture of warning. "You think you can handle the fallout? Every corner you turn, it could lead to devastation. You will regret it." "Regret is never knowing my mother's truth," he replied firmly, sizing her up, the roles shifting. Where once he felt entangled in her web, now he realized he had gained his footing. Without another word, he ascended the stairs, the worn steps taking on a new significance. Each creak seemed to echo a promise to himself, to confront the unknown and unravel the tapestry of deceit woven through his life, the life of the mother he had barely known. Arriving at the attic door, Jake paused to collect himself. The atmosphere thickened with age and secrecy. With a steadying breath, he reached for the knob, feeling the cool metal beneath his fingers. How many times had this door been closed to him? How many moments had passed, all carefully guarded by the weight of memories that begged to be set free? As he pushed the door open, dust motes danced like lost spirits in the dim light of the attic. Boxes piled high loomed like sentinels, concealing the remnants of a life he had yet to understand. He stepped inside cautiously, glancing around. The room was a sanctuary of lost things, only it felt as if it housed remnants of manipulation and lies rather than cherished memories. Shifting a box filled with forgotten trinkets, Jake spotted a folder tucked away, its contents bulging slightly. Something about it called to him. He could feel the pulse of something significant thrumming beneath the surface, nudging him closer. A quick glance at the title sent a shiver through him: Guardianship and Estate Records. The realization hit him like a cold wave. It wasn't just about his mother's past, but his own future entangled in these hidden legalities. Miranda's bid for control over him was broadening, revealing layers he couldn't yet grasp. He stepped back, feeling the weight of the file in his hands. Each moment swelled with endless possibilities, his mind racing between the implications of what he held: power, reprisal, freedom. He could no longer allow himself to be manipulated. This was not just about facing Miranda or revealing secrets confined to the attic. It was about reclaiming his identity and the narrative of his own life. With determination fueling his actions, Jake opened the folder and scanned the documents, each line revealing more than just legal jargon. Names and dates circled his consciousness, intertwining with his own history in ways he couldn't have anticipated. It felt surreal, confronting fragments of a family he had only begun to understand. Suddenly he heard footsteps on the stairs, and the unsettling truth struck him. Miranda was coming to reclaim what she believed was hers. Jake's heart raced as the reality of the moment settled over him like a thick fog, cloaking the attic with uncertainty. He faced the door, no longer merely a child lost in his mother's shadows, but a man on the verge of reclaiming his agency. As the footsteps grew louder, a sense of urgency surged within him. What risk would he take next? How would he defend his newfound strength against Miranda's inevitable onslaught? Jake's heart raced as he quickly thumbed through the folder, absorbing insights that tied his mother to a broader narrative of manipulation and strategic oversight. He couldn't believe the evidence. Legal documents outlined Miranda's attempts to secure his mother's assets, all unbeknownst to him. Clutched in his hands was more than just paperwork. It was the catalyst for change, and he was finally seizing control. Each breath grew steadier, his stance firming as the footsteps approached. As he glanced over the documents one last time, adrenaline coursed through him. He internalized that his next actions would determine the trajectory of not just his future, but that of his mother's as well. The confrontation with Miranda would no longer be an exercise in futility. It would be the start of dismantling the facade she had built. The door creaked open, and Miranda stood framed in the doorway, her expression a mix of anger and disbelief. "What are you doing up here? You don't belong in this space." Jake took a deep breath, grounding himself in the weight of his newfound knowledge. "I belong here now, Miranda," he stated, voice unwavering. "I've uncovered the truth about your schemes to control my mother's decisions." He held the folder aloft, its contents revealing his inner resolve. "You've manipulated everyone around you, including me, but that ends now." Miranda's composure faltered. "You don't know what you're talking about. You're crossing a line that you can't retake." She stepped into the attic. The scent of confrontation filled the air, but Jake stood firm. "I've spent too long being manipulated by you. The time for your games is over. The documents I've found expose your control over everything. This isn't just about my mother's care anymore. It's about taking back my life." Each word flowed from his lips like a proclamation. With her facade cracking, Miranda's voice turned shrill. "You think this changes anything? I'll make sure you regret every decision you make." The venomous threat rolled off her tongue, yet her composure tumbled, revealing the vulnerability that lay underneath. Jake felt a surge of empowerment. "No, Miranda, it's you who should be concerned. You've certainly underestimated my willingness to protect my mother and myself from your manipulation." Courage washed over him, igniting an unspoken connection with the strength of his causes. He could feel it in his bones. He would not relent. However, Miranda's frantic demeanor suggested desperation. "You won't win this. I've built everything on this foundation. You're nothing without me," she spat, a curled lip showcasing fear masked as indignation. The truth was, Jake now understood the depth of manipulation. He had always been more than a pawn in her game. "Maybe I will be more than you ever expected when your grip is gone. Unlike you, I can build without deceit or fear. I'll take my mother's care into my own hands." Miranda backed away slowly, the weight of the confrontation resting heavily on her shoulders. "You'll undermine yourself. You have no idea what I can do to you." With each threat, Jake felt the mantle of power shift toward him. "But I do know what you've done to my family. It ends now." With newfound courage, Jake turned his back on Miranda's false authority, standing before the threshold that outlined the path toward liberation. For too long, he had accepted the role she forced upon him. Now he was ready to challenge not just her grip, but also reshape his family's legacy. "Be careful, Jake. You might discover things about your mother that you can't handle," Miranda dared to warn as he made his way past her, pushing through the doorway. "Maybe the truth is just what I need," he countered, the intensity of conviction igniting a fire of resolution deep within him. In the moments that followed, he returned to his mother's hospital room, equipped not only with documents, but with the strength to confront his own fears. Fears that had shackled him to a life dictated by Miranda's whims. He sat beside her, vulnerability tinged with hope. The rhythmic beeping of machines accompanied him as he described the truths he had uncovered. "Mom, we're going to fight for you. I will not let anyone dictate your care or manipulate your wishes ever again," he vowed, the weight of commitment growing more profound. Doris slowly opened her eyes, the clarity in her gaze igniting the determination in Jake. He could see the recognition. Her awareness of his journey toward reclaiming their story resonated beyond the frailty of her body. "Jake!" Her voice was hoarse, yet the strength behind it buoyed his spirit. "I knew you would find your way." In that moment, everything came full circle. The confrontation with Miranda had catalyzed not just a battle for his mother's welfare, but a personal quest for strength and assertiveness. The impending confrontation shifted the landscape of the past, transforming every shadow into clarity. Conversations with Margaret Stokes appeared in Jake's mind, validating the significance of the foundation he was building. He would enlist her expertise, laying groundwork to restore his mother's autonomy and dismantle Miranda's suffocating grip. Jake's resolve solidified. He stood as the architect of his family's narrative. He was not just defending his mother, he was forging a new identity marked by commitment and authenticity. Each connection he made, would only fortify that reclamation, a legacy where love triumphed over deceit. As he prepared to step into the storm with Miranda, he felt ready. He was no longer that cautious son suspended in uncertainty. He was a man ready to reclaim his life and his family's future. This was the transformation he had fought for, the power to shape his own destiny illuminated before him. The confrontation awaited, but Jake felt no fear. He had discovered his truth, and that knowledge was the mightiest weapon of all. Now was the time for action, time to reveal who he truly was. And in that moment, surrounded by the essence of his mother's love, Jake knew transformation was more profound than triumph alone. This was the beginning of a journey toward freedom, purpose, and unshakable identity. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share. True fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.